Hi everyone, thank you Anik for that great introduction and today's roundup. Hello everyone who's a regular and to new people joining Comms Hero this week. So now we have someone who I'm really excited about, Rachel Miller, who's a global international comms, internal comms consultant and mentor. She is the founder and director of All Things IC Limited and the host of the Candid Comms podcast. We will have a Q&A at the end, so make sure you add your questions into the chat and Rachel will answer those. And a couple of housekeeping things as well. So at the bottom of your screen, you can use the emojis to give a round of applause, or if you like something, love it. That's Lee going nuts on there at the moment, thankfully. And you can turn on your subtitles at the bottom by clicking on the CC icon. And on the right-hand side is your chat. So that's where we want you to ask your questions, so be prepared. So I will now hand you over to Rachel, and I'll be back at the end.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to see if the tech works, which is always the challenge. Let's have a look. Fingers crossed. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can see that. Can I have a thumbs up if you can see that? Marvellous, brilliant, thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Rachel Miller and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm really excited to be opening Comms Hero Week. The purpose of our time together is to focus on you. Before we dive into all the exciting things that you will hear this week, my intention for this session is just to set you up for success for this week. Whether you're dipping in and out, whether you're watching live, this is your time. This is our space. So I encourage you to pause, reflect, get ready, and I hope you have a new notebook to hand. I saw quite a few notebooks being shared on Twitter this morning. I saw Andrea had shared her notebook. So get ready. We're going to focus in on you. The purpose of this session is thinking about future-proofing your comms career. And it's a critical topic for us as communicators. How can we future-proof? Well, we can't really predict. We can't predict what's going to happen. We can't predict crisis situations. We certainly can't predict global pandemics. But what we can do is make predictions about our own careers. And the best way I know to do that, there are 3 keys, and it's what I use within my own comms career to help me plan for the future. And I'm going to share them with you today. They are consistency, clarity, and certainty. These 3 words and these 3 mindsets, if you like, help me future-proof my career. And I'm going to help you unlock your own potential today. We're going to start with consistency. And consistency for me is about how we show up. How do we show up as internal communicators? How can we create consistency in a world that is anything but? When I think about consistency, it's about setting standards. So we need to be brilliant communicators. We also need to have repeatable tasks. You are the chief communicator inside your organization, whether it says so on your business card or email footer or not, whether you are a team of 1 or you're in a team of 20 or more, you are in charge of the way that you communicate. That is a real sign. I have it here at the All Things IC Hub in West London. It's on my wall of positivity just over there, and I'm going to show you that wall shortly. But the reason for me when I think about being the chief communicator, the reason that's important is that the buck stops with us. What are the repeatable things that you can do in your internal comms career to create consistency? From a tactical perspective, that's things like advice and guidance, branding guidelines, tone of voice, having things at our fingertips to create consistency inside our own organizations. You cannot be a brilliant leader without being a brilliant communicator. So what that means for me is how we show up consistently, how we role model what excellent communication looks like. I believe as professional communicators, it is our business to know our business. And if you've listened to my Candid Comms podcast, you will have heard me say that quite a few times. The reason that's important is because when we're working in internal comms, very often we are the voices of our employees. We talk about this as being in the shoes of our employees, making sure we're bringing them into the room and into conversations. From our own perspectives, that's critical. If you're trying to be consistent in your career, the more that you know your employees, the better you can be as an internal communicator. How many times have you done an employee survey inside your organization? And we work really hard to publish the results, make sure they're known, and make sure leaders in particular have accountability and actions. And then time goes on, and then they're forgotten. And then maybe 3 months before the next one, if we're on an annual cycle, 3 months before, we go, oh goodness, we need to look back. You did, you said, so we did. And we try and rehash all of the comments that people have said because we're not using them day to day. My advice to you is if you are asking your people for their views, if you're encouraging their voices, you need to make sure they are continuously amplified inside your organization. If you want to future-proof your career, for me, that's getting really, really close to your employees. Then you bring that insight and that evidence into the conversations you're having. For example, if you are planning change communication and you know from your employee surveys that your employees feel like change is done to them, not for them and not with them, that can shape the way that you work. So it's important that you have that information at the tip of on your fingertips and top of mind so you can recall it instantly. A way to create consistency is to talk consistently about internal communication. I believe the purpose of internal communication isn't telling people what to do, which may be a bit of a surprise because maybe you work with people who think that we're here to tell people what to do, but actually it's to create a shared understanding and a shared meaning. And only when that happens can employees work together towards a company's goals. That's it, comms friends, on a page. That's what we're here to do. When I talk about internal comms, this is what I say. I've said it so much I could say it in my sleep. Think about this for you, for your own career. How do you describe what you're here to do? What is the purpose of internal communication from your own perspective, but also from your organization's perspective? Do you have a consistent approach? And if you don't, what can you do differently as a result of this week, as a result of this session today? If you don't have a clearly defined purpose that you constantly articulate, I encourage you to do that. It's super important. Oh, I like the emojis with the sunglasses. Thank you. Whoever just shared those, it's very cute. Every conversation in internal communication for me needs to begin with, what do you want people to do? If you're trying to be consistent, you need to have a consistent starting point. So for me, before I dive into anything, any campaign, any initiative, any app, any poster, anything, what do you want people to do? What's the point of your communication? I take this one step further. I used to call this my secret sauce, but over the last year, I've called it my intentions framework. I think it coincided with turning 40. I felt like I couldn't really say secret sauce anymore. So here it is on a page. This is how I work. To be consistent in the work that I do as an internal communicator, I set the intentions. And my intentions are, what do you want people to do, say, think, feel? And I sometimes add the word differently as a result of my communication. And how do I want or need them to behave? Now, you might have a version of this. You might have know, feel, do, think, feel, act. Change the words to suit the culture of your organization. If you don't have anything in place, I encourage you to add the word feel. If you don't have feel in there, add it. In 2021 and beyond, we have to be focused on how our employees feel. It's critically important. So I encourage you to think about that. Think about how can you take this away from this session? How can you create something for your own work? And the reason that's important, well, if I haven't set my intentions, I can't possibly measure. And comms friends, we could do a whole week on measurement. We know it's the Achilles heel of internal communication. But but I'm here to tell you that it doesn't need to be. If you set your intentions and you're really clear in terms of how do we want our employees to be feeling at the end of this change communication, for example, and then how do we work backwards? That sets the tone for your measurement, because you can see whether what you intended to do has actually happened. I'm going to share some superpowers with you as we are thinking about comms heroes. For me, it's about the small acts of heroics that you can do every single day. I don't believe that we should be the heroes. Our employees should be the heroes. And what we need to do is apply the correct mindset. So for me, if you apply kindness, ethics, and empathy in your work, you will future-proof your career. It doesn't matter whether this is day one of your comms career or if it's your 22nd year like me. If you are applying kindness, ethics, and empathy in everything you do, you're not only going to connect your employees' heads, but their hearts too. For me, that is how to future-proof your career, by working in a way that's in congruence with your values. When you do that, when you find that, it's the best job in the world. I had a conversation with a mentoring client last week, and we were talking about this and talking about the importance of how we show up and how we show up consistently. And I shared with her that sometimes it can feel like you are banging your head against the brick wall. And I can tell you from experience, sometimes the only way through that is to change the brick wall and leave the organization that you're in. When you are trying to work in a way that's in congruence with your values, when you're trying to bring your employees with you and you're trying to work consistently inside an organization, sometimes the best thing you can do is to leave. It's fairly controversial. I'm not saying that to be controversial, but just to share with you that your career is too important to put your energies in the wrong place. The second thing for us to focus on today is clarity. And this is really important for me. And I'm going to share something with you that I've used. I've been doing some research into personal branding since 2017. And I'm going to lift the lid a little bit. And I'm going to introduce you to some friends of mine. Your personal brand is your reputation and your promise. It's who you are and what you're known for. Jeff Bezos from Amazon talks about it as it's what people say about you when you're not in the room. What do they say? Do you know what your leaders say about you when you're not in the room or not on the call? I'm going to share with you some thoughts around what personal branding is. It sounds like something a Kardashian would have, but I'm going to share with you the academic definition. So it's a set of characteristics of an individual. It's your attributes, it's your values, it's your beliefs, and it's rendered into the differentiated narrative and imagery. In other words, it's who you are and how you show up consistently in your career. And when you have clarity around what that means, you can future-proof it. I believe that you own your personal brand and you rent it to the organization you work for. Back in 2010, I was having a job interview for an in-house role, and I just started writing my blog. I write a blog on internal comms, and I've been writing it for about a year at that point, and I was really enjoying it. And it was called Diary of an Internal Communicator. And when I had my job interview, we had a conversation with the lady who became my boss and the HR director. And I raised this and said, I write a blog about internal comms and I'd like to continue doing that. Can you help me understand how we can make that happen? And they said, oh, we don't know. We've never had that before. No one's ever asked that before. Is that a deal breaker if we wouldn't let you do it? And I said, yeah, it is a deal breaker. So we came up with a compromise where we agreed. Until the day I left, it didn't say on my LinkedIn where I worked. I never wrote about the organization. I was writing more broadly and generally about things that really inspire me to do with internal comms. I didn't write about the minutiae of the work that I was doing in a global pharmaceutical company. And then when I left, we added Novartis to my LinkedIn profile because we could share the fact that, in fact, it was Novartis. However, I started to speak at events and conferences, and I started to share my thoughts and work out loud as me. Me as Rachel Miller, not me as Rachel Miller from Novartis or from any other of the organizations that I was working for. And that one thing alone was super helpful for my career, because when you're trying to future-proof yourself and you're future-proofing your own skills, your knowledge and experience, think about how you can get known as you, not you linked to a company. So even though it was quite a tricky situation, and I remember leaving that job interview thinking, I don't know how this is going to work. I feel a bit uncomfortable. Is it enough for me to just be me, not me linked to the organisation I'm working with? And I promise you that it is. So you own your personal brand and you rent it to the organisation that you work for. So how do people describe you? When I said Jeff Bezos' quote around, it's what people say about you when you're not in the room. What sprung to mind? Do you know what people say about you? I've had some little friends made for you, and I'm going to introduce you to them. So I find there are 4 answers. When I ask people that I work with, when I ask comms directors and internal comms professionals about their personal brand, their reputation and their promise inside their organisation, I get one of 4 answers. The first one is a trusted advisor, and we love it. We love being described as a trusted advisor. The characteristics for me is that you are asked for by name. This isn't someone emailing a generic comms mailbox or wandering into the area of an office where comms professionals sit and saying, I need a comms person. They know you by name. You are trusted. Anyone can be an advisor, but to be a trusted advisor means you are included in conversations early. And the best thing for me is when people say, oh, Rachel, I'm not sure if you need to know this, but awesome. That's a clue. That's when you know you're in trusted advisor territory. You're also invited to comment outside of a comms remit. Everyone knows we can do comms. That's why we're here. But because you know your business, it's our business to know our business. People then ask for our advice. They ask us how employees are feeling. So being a trusted advisor for me transcends the role of being a communicator. So that's number 1, trusted advisor. Number 2 is the comms police. How cute are her glasses? I was delighted when I found these glasses. You can make your own minifigs on minifigs.me. Aren't they cute? I love them. So comms police is, we're known for maintaining high standards. And you know that I'm being really diplomatic here, comms friends. We are the brand guardians, and we love a red pen or attract changes. That's what we're known for. We're known as the editors. We're known as the brand guardians. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. The third option is actually people don't know me. We're a bit Stig-like. People don't know who you are. People don't know that you exist. Leaders don't know that you exist, and you feel like a faceless comms person at the end of that generic mailbox inside your organisation. And the fourth answer I normally get when I ask people about personal branding is they're not sure. They say, you know what, Rachel, I've never thought about it. I have no idea. I don't know what I'm known for. I don't know how my leaders describe me. It's not something I've ever considered before. I don't know how my stakeholders or my leaders or my boss describe me. Though these are the 4, the comms police, the trusted advisors, people don't know us, or we don't know. So I'm curious to know, and I'm going to have a look at the chat afterwards. Do you know what you're known for? How do people describe you? If you had to choose, I'm going to encourage you to type down whether you know what you're known for. And also, is there a gap? So what's the impact? If you're known as being the comms police, but actually you want to move into trusted advisor territory, what's the impact of that disconnect between how people know you and how you want to be? I have a personal branding checklist which has got some questions to guide you through to help you come up with what you're known for. Do feel free to get in touch with me if you want to do that. I'm very happy to send copies of that, and maybe I'll pop it on the blog later today. You're very welcome to check that out for free. Or we've got lots going in. Trusted advisor, but we are small. Yeah, that's important, because sometimes you may switch in one day, in one conversation. You may switch. If you are a team of 1 in particular, you are wearing many hats. Kate Jones is going to be talking about career on Wednesday. So thoroughly encourage you to check out Kate's session on Wednesday. And she says, trusted advisor, defo asked for by name. And I completely agree. I rent myself to the organisation I work for. Awesome. Brilliant. Thank you, Kate. So think about the impact. Why does it matter how you're known? How does that impact the way that you're seen inside your organisation? And how does it impact your career prospects? Think about who you know within your network and how you can draw on the skills of the people around you. If you feel like I'm not seen as a trusted advisor and I really want to be seen as one, then who around you is? Look at your team. What is it that people around you are doing differently to you? Third point to share with you is certainty. And this for me is around thinking about all of the things that we've covered already. How do we consolidate them? There's two sides of the same coin for me. You've got mindset and skill set. And you need to be focused on both. If you want to have certainty in your comms career, you need to invest time, money, and effort in your mindset and your skill set. And you're doing that this week by attending these sessions. So your mindset is your established set of attitudes that are held by someone. So what are you certain of? How do you show up? What are the attitudes that you have, and how do you display them in your career? Or what do you tell yourself? When you go into your job, when you go into difficult conversations with your stakeholders, what mindset are you going in with? If you're trying to create certainty in your career, then what you tell yourself and what you listen to is critically important. I believe what happens inside is reflected outside. I had this beautiful piece of artwork created back in 2018 when All Things I See turned 5. Thank you for those lovely emojis. It's beautiful, isn't it? I've got a massive one of it on the wall in here and in the second room as well. And for me, if I look at that, I haven't really shared what's behind it, but all of those flowers represent something for me. So there's the name of my daughter is one of the flowers. One of the flowers represents wisdom. So an iris represents wisdom. There's flowers in there to represent change. And when I look at that image, every single image represents something in terms of how I want to be. I wouldn't describe myself as wise. How I want to be, how I aspire to be. The focus on mindset for me is if I'm really clear in terms of the way that I work, what happens inside is reflected outside. The more that I learn, the more that I share can help other people. I also think of it from my mental health and well-being. And we know this, comms friends, we are in such visible roles. What happens inside, it impacts how we show up. It impacts what's reflected on the outside. And also from an organizational perspective, if you have a toxic culture, it will seep out. And if you have a positive culture, it will seep out. What happens inside our organizations is reflected outside. So use this in the way that suits you. Take this visual representation for you. What is happening inside when you think about your career, and how are you reflecting that outside? When I think about mindset, it matters to me that we listen well. So to create certainty in our comms career, you have to be tuned in to what's going on around you. I talked about the importance of listening to employee survey results earlier. This is your career. No one can tell you what or who to listen to. Use this week, use this opportunity to pick and choose from the people that you hear from to inform your own mindset. This is your career, it's your time. So take what you need from this week. This is the wall of positivity that I mentioned. It's just over there in this beautiful space that is my office. And when I was creating this space, it was important to me that communicators can come and take something away. So the wall of positivity is full of affirmations and things to help people. So the idea is that you come and take what you need. And I had this sign in the middle created that you change your words, you change your mindset. And that's what you're telling yourself, what you're telling yourself about your career and the possibilities ahead of you. I believe if you change your words, what you're listening to and what you tell yourself, you can change your mindset. But what about skill set? I have 3 young children and they are obsessed with Rubik's Cubes, comms friends, let me tell you. And there are various versions available, and some of them are, well, I don't like them. They're not for me, but my children are really obsessed with them and they spend time figuring it all out. I don't have enough patience to do a Rubik's Cube. I'll be honest with you, but they are invested in incrementally trying to solve this. So we got them Rubik's Cubes for Christmas. So for the last 9 months, I keep discovering Rubik's Cubes everywhere. They go in school bags. I found them in the bathroom. I found them in the linen bin. I find them everywhere. And they spend time trying to solve this. I believe when I think about my career, it has to be incremental. We have to think about how can we continuously improve our skill sets. One of the best ways I know to do this is to refer to the Institute of Internal Communications Profession Map. Again, if you've listened to my Candid Comms podcast, you will have heard me talk about the Profession Map. On a page, this is it. This is what excellent looks like from the Institute of Internal Communication, a 72-year-old institute that exists to support us as internal communicators. And it is packed with good stuff on here. You've got your professional areas, so your knowledge and your expertise, your skills. Round the outside are your behaviours. And at the core is the purpose sitting at the heart of the internal comms profession. There's a brilliant PDF that goes along with this. It's available on the IOIC website. It's also available on my website, where you can work your way through it and think, where am I at? If you're curious about the skills that you need and you want to be able to benchmark yourself, I encourage you to check it out. It exists to support us, and it's well worth reading. So we've got mindset, we've got skill set, but we also need to think about our tool set when it comes to being an internal communicator. And we've got branding guidelines, we've got toolkits, templates inside our organizations. But I mean further than that. Not just the things that you have that will help you in your career, but also the people who will help you in your career. We are spoiled for choice. We are surrounded globally by amazing organizations and membership bodies who exist to support us as professional communicators. So when you think about your comms career and you think about how can I get advice and guidance to help me do my job, to help shift perceptions, to help me increase my skills, my knowledge and my confidence, here are just some, and I'm sure I've probably missed some, but here are just some of the incredible communities that exist globally to support us. So I'm going to bring our session to a close shortly, and I'm going to do so by thinking about the wonderful Maya Angelou, who said, success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. I believe if you work intentionally in internal communication, if you are really focused on your values, on your attitudes, in your beliefs and your behaviors, you're aligning your mindset and your skill set, then you're going to like what you're doing. And therefore, you are going to be successful. It's working with integrity. It's working in a way that sits really well with you. So what can we do as a result of this session? What actions can you take today? I'm going to share something that I use a lot in my work, and it's stop, start, continue. So it talks at the start about repeatable questions and repeatable actions that you can take as an internal communicator. As you go through this week, I'm sure if you're anything like me, when you go to a conference, you will make a heck of a lot of notes, hopefully, in that new notebook. Think about what do you want to stop, what do you want to start, and what do you want to continue as you listen to the sections and the sessions. What ideas can you take away, particularly if you thought, you know what, I'm not known for what I want to be known for. I want to work more strategically, or I want to be better known by my leaders. What advice can you take from your peers this week? What could you start? What could you stop? And what actually is going well already? What could you continue? I'm going to end with an offer for you. I publish a range of online masterclasses, and ASIF has encouraged me to share an offer with you. So you're very welcome to sign up to do training with me, and you can save 15% off by using the code CommsHero. And I'm going to go to your questions and stop sharing. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. That was fantastic. On a selfish note, because I have recently taken on internal comms, that was amazing. Brilliant tips in there that I will be taking away and probably signing up for your discount as well. So thank you for that. I'm going to have a look to see if anyone's got any questions in. I know there was quite a few comments about, which one are you sort of things. And there were quite a few that said comms police, which I have heard quite a lot. Trusted advisor is a good one. And a mixture of both of them. If anyone's got any questions, you can put them in the chat function. If you just go across the top of the Q&A, or just pop them in the chat and I'll pick them up. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that I've thought of. I mean, I had lots, but I know we were limited on time. So we are all human, even as comms people, even though our colleagues probably don't think that. What mistake, could you give an example of a mistake that you've made that, you know, you thought, oh my God, that's the end of the world, but how you've bounced back from that setback and what you learned from it?
We haven't got long enough. We could do a whole week on all the mistakes that I made. There's a brilliant podcast, actually, the Internal Miscommunications podcast by Erica Goodwin and Keith Riley, which is full of internal communicators sharing their mistakes. I've made many in my career. And I think if I think about the biggest mistakes for me is not believing in myself enough. So not standing up for myself enough, not saying no to stakeholders, particularly when I was in-house. And because you are a professional communicator, this is what we do for a living. So you have to believe. And I think if you increase your own skills, knowledge and confidence in your niche, in your profession of internal comms, it should enable you to have those difficult conversations and combat stakeholders when they come in with a channel and say, I need to have a story on the internet. And you go, whoa, hold on a second. And you go through the intentions framework. You know, what is it you want people to do, say, think, feel? How do you want them to behave? I didn't do that enough, particularly when I was in-house and when I was learning about internal comms. I wasn't confident enough because I let other people tell me what to do. And I let other people tell me how to communicate rather than having frameworks and having confidence to push back and have the right words, really, as an internal communicator. So haven't got it completely nailed, but as I've grown in confidence, as I've learned more about internal comms, it has increased my ability to go into tough situations. And my friend Liam Fitzpatrick says, come with data, leave with respect. So if you go into a difficult conversation with data, you're going to leave with respect.
That's brilliant. Yeah, and I think we've all been there where you feel like the easy option is, yes, we'll put it on the internet or we'll tweet or we'll do whatever you want. But it is looking at why and what's the objective of it and the function of it. So that's fantastic. We have had a flurry of questions, so I'll go to these.
Sure.
So let's start with Ellie, who says, how do you deal with the one function that wants to take over all the internal comms and post articles every day?
Just one. You're lucky if there's just one. Oh, what a great question. The way you deal with it is getting to know them and building relationships. So if there is one particular function, is it the whole function or is it one particular person? And is it because they don't understand what the purpose of internal comms is? They don't understand what we do, the value that we add, and how we can help them. More often than not, it is that. And they feel like they're just going to flood all the channels because their message, their project is super important. So there's a bit of an education piece there for me in terms of getting to know your stakeholders, helping them understand what great looks like, showing your workings out, your channels matrix, for example, where you're showing these are all the channels, this is the purpose, this is what makes a great story. And more often than not, if you are showing your workings out, you're helping people understand why you say no.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's about educating, isn't it? So they understand, just like when we're younger, if someone gives that explanation, you take it on board, usually. We've got, hi Rachel, great session. Hi Rachel, great session. How do you balance building your personal brand and not care too much about what people think of you?
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. So for me, it's around being intentional for yourself. So what does good look like for you? What is it that you want to achieve? If it is that you want to be working strategically, to be a head of internal comms, to be a trusted advisor, then you can't do it by being the yes person all the time. So you can't please everybody all the time. And actually, when you get to that level, that's the worst thing you can possibly do because you're there to be a strategic lead and set standards. So you can't say yes to everybody. So the best way I find is to do incremental conversations and build relationships as you go. You are not everyone's going to like what you say, and that's fine because we are focused on creating a shared understanding and shared meaning to align our employees to our organization's purpose. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than people not liking what you've got to say. So it's really easy to say you shouldn't care what people think about you. Of course you do. We're human. We don't like it when people don't like what we've got to say. But if your confidence comes from certainty around this is what fantastic internal comms looks like, this is what's needed for our organisation, that for me is what sets you on the right path.
Brilliant. Yeah. So lots of evidence-based things and data, going back to what you said as well, just to get that buy-in.
Absolutely.
Sarah says, fantastic session. How do you see staff engagement fitting with internal comms?
So I don't think you can separate them. I think depending on the definition of engagement, so Engage for Success back in 2008-9, about 43 different definitions of engagement. So whenever I have conversations about engagement, I want to know what the definition is. So if you're talking about staff engagement, do you mean involvement? Do you mean creating the conditions where employees can thrive? Do you mean about educating people and informing them? So get really clear on what you mean when you talk about engagement, and then start from there. And more often than not, I find checking for understanding is critical. So engagement might mean one thing to you as a professional communicator. It might mean something else to your leaders. It might mean something else to your stakeholders and your people team. I don't think you can separate out staff engagement and internal comms. I think it needs to be all part and parcel of the same conversation, because we're focused on creating conditions for our employees to thrive.
Good answer. I thought I saw one from Lee, but no, that's gone. Mark says, do you think building a personal brand is more difficult as a result of the pandemic and changing ways of working?
I think it's harder inside organisations where you're not having those incidental conversations, where you're not bumping into leaders. You have to be much more intentional and much more focused on creating the opportunities to have those conversations. So particularly with leaders, you know, more often than not, if you show up on a call with a leader before everybody else, what does that conversation look like? Is it, oh, while I've got you, can you just sign off X, Y, Z? Or actually, are you working on being a trusted advisor? Are you working on getting to know them, having a personal relationship with your leaders? So I definitely think it's harder, but it's not impossible. It's about planning your time, because you can't just stop by their place of work in the way that we used to. So it's definitely harder, but not impossible.
Yeah, I agree with that. Kate says, hi, Rachel. How do you advise people to move from don't know to trusted advisor?
Oh, good question, Kate. Thank you. So don't know is I'm not sure what people think of me. So the best way to do that is to ask. So the checklist that I mentioned earlier is 10 questions to ask to really understand your perception. And it's asking people that you trust to be honest with you. So if you feel like people don't know who you are, then why not? What is it that you need to do differently? Is it that you need to show up more? Is it you need to use your voice more? Is it that you need to say no more? And that checklist gives you that clarity in terms of where am I at now and where do I want to be? So if I want to move from don't know to trusted advisor, what are the steps that I need to take to get there? How do I need to show up? How do I need to... I used to do lunch and learn sessions when I was in-house, when I just started using Twitter back in 2009. And I knew that I wanted to be a consultant. So my last 2 in-house roles, I tried stuff out. And they didn't know that. They didn't know me as anything other than the way that I worked. But I did lunch and learn sessions to teach people about Twitter. And it was mini masterclasses, really. But it was positioning myself as a trusted advisor and seeing how it felt, seeing whether I was comfortable with it. And it was a safe space because I was working in-house. So you can do that. You can try things out and experiment.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And lastly, and a nice one actually, because it'll round up some of what you've been talking about. So from Naomi, any key do's and don'ts?
Don't stress about it. So if you're watching this and thinking, oh, I don't feel like I'm a trusted advisor, or I think I'm known as the comms police and it's a bit of an issue, or I feel like I need to get a new job, take your time. There's no rush. The worst thing is to force yourself to do something that you feel like you're not actually ready for. So my advice always is to build your network and build trusted people around you who you can check in with and learn from. I know I shared lots of different organizations on that slide in terms of communities of people. So don't stress about it. Do ask for feedback. So if you're doing, your personal brand checklist and you're asking people what they think about you, then review it. do a 30, 60, 90-day plans. I like to do incremental plans rather than saying in a year's time, I'd like to do this again. And I'd like people to think differently. Well, how are you going to get there? How are you going to break it down? So do plan, do put the same effort into your own career that we put into everybody else's, frankly, and to amplify their voices. So do work out loud, do take people with you, do share your thinking, and celebrate successes as well. You should be really
Brilliant.
proud of the work that you're doing.
Excellent. Do we have time for one more, Lee? Yeah. We have got one more here. So what is one thing that you started or continued since COVID-19?
Oh, hello, Alexandra. I have the pleasure of working with Alexandra. What have I stopped? I've stopped giving myself a hard time about trying to be everywhere and be everything for everybody. So I think one thing that the pandemic has done has made us really focus on our time and how to use it really well. So something that I've stopped doing is trying to spread myself too thin. And I've implemented a key working week. Caroline and my team has been instrumental in doing that. So I plan my time better. So I've that's a new thing for me. So I've stopped overthinking and stressing. And I've continued creating time to learn. I've continued creating time to listen to podcasts and to attend things like this. And I've always done that, but now I'm being more intentional because we haven't had the in-person conversations, and I miss that. So as a result of the pandemic, I have been trying to learn in different ways. And something I won't be continuing is homeschooling, which I think my children are probably delighted about. It's great for some people, but wasn't for me. So something for me is about creating more time, more quality time for my family, actually.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rachel. I think I can listen to you all day. I think everybody else feels like that. I know people can connect with you through Twitter, your All Things IC, your Instagram, which I know I follow and love, Rachel All Things IC, and you're on LinkedIn, and of course the podcast that you host, Candid Comms Podcast. That's brilliant. Oh, I've got Asif there saying brilliant. Everybody's saying amazing. I think some great tips there. Yeah, so fantastic. Thank you ever so much. We have got a couple of things that Lee's just passed over to me for everyone going into the social lounge. So we've done it previously, we did it last year, we're doing it again this year. So if you take a photo of yourselves on the table, and if you want to tweet it, tag in hashtag Comms Hero, and Lee assures me that we've got things like Sharpies that for some reason all us comms people love.
Love a Sharpie. That's a great prize. We're just here for the Sharpies.
So there's Sharpies to be won. The diaries. I've actually got one of my Comms Hero pads, and I think I've got hundreds of these now. So there's lots of these around as well. And Comms Hero Pets at Home vouchers. I think this came up from last year, so we're rolling with that again. And Amazon vouchers. So definitely take those pictures, tweet them, get all the buzz going, and share some of the tips that Rachel has shared with all of you as well. So thank you so much. If everyone wants to just give Rachel a round of applause using your emojis, and then chat in the social lounge where we're all heading to in a moment.